Thank you, sir.
Pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
It's all yours.
All right. Okay, are you ready for this? You think so? Yeah. Okay, well, this is my 12th program for a CMAA group. Anytime you get invited back, it's because of one of two things. One, either the speaker was really good, or two, the group needs it really bad. Good speaker? Okay, good. Well, I like that perspective already. Today, what I'm going to cover with you is what does it really take to thrive in a high-demand job, in a high-demand life? After learning more and more about what your life is like every day. I mean, I think I was at your first World Conference back in 2013. It's easy for me to see that it's a high-demand job with huge energy requirements for you, both at work, and then you got to bring that home to your loved ones. So I've got very specific ideas that are going to help you chase your goals, your members' goals, your staff's goals, your family's goals, chase them with greater energy, greater enthusiasm. How does that sound? Thanks for the enthusiasm. Okay, so to start us off, I want you to picture this, picture this scene. It's actually an episode on one of my favorite television shows. The show is called Mind Control. It's by a guy named Darren Brown. Now, Darren he's an illusionist. Now, illusionists are a little bit different than magicians. Magicians work off of misdirection. Illusionists work off the tricks of the mind. Okay, so my favorite episode was actually in their UK. Darren Brown picks up the phone and he calls this very highly paid advertising agency and says, listen, I need your two best people. I want you to come to my location. I'm going to have you design a logo and a slogan for my new company. And they said, great, what's it about? He goes, I'll tell you when you get here. As a matter of fact, I'm sending a car right now. Okay, so Brown sends the car. The car gets there. The two ad execs come out. And as they walk out, there's the car. They get in the car. The car drives them to the location. They walk up into the building. They sit down at a table much like you're at. And then Darren Brown walks in and he goes, okay, man, I'm so excited to see what you guys come up with. But I don't want to influence you. So my ideas are in this seal envelope. And he puts them on the table in front of them and reaches under the table and pulls out a stuffed bobcat and sets it right on top of the envelope. And they go, whoa. And he goes, yeah, because this is what my company is about. It's taxidermy. Now, I think you know what taxidermy is down here in Florida. Yes? Okay, yeah, I thought so. I'm from, stuffed alligators, right. I'm from Arkansas, so we definitely know what taxidermy is. Okay, so the guys go, okay, all right. And he goes, you've got 30 minutes, go. Boom. Okay, now, so I don't know if you've seen ad execs do their thing, but it looks like this. There's one guy on the flip chart. There's one or two people out there sitting down, and they start to brainstorm ideas, and they'll even write them down. And they'll even if they get off on a tangent that's not good, they'll do what's called the dramatic rip. They'll go, no, rip the page off. I mean, they're really, really into it. I don't know, have you ever seen creatives do their thing like that? It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, so after the 30 minutes is up, one of the tricks that advertising execs use is they always start in the middle of the flip chart. So that way they can put the clear paper back over the top and do the big reveal. All right, so Darren Brown walks in and he goes, I'm so excited, guys. And here's another trick that ad execs use. They always say, you're going to love this. All right? So he goes, you're going to love this. They pull it back. Now, before I tell you what they did, I want to know what you would do. If you were challenged to draw the logo for a taxidermy company, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Animal, right? What kind of animal? Deer, right. Okay, so 90+% something with antlers. Okay? All right? Did anyone think of a bear? See, that's not unusual. No one thought of a bear. I did this in front of 4,000 healthcare creatives, design experts in the healthcare space. Not one person thought of a bear. Okay, so they pull the paper back. On the sheet is a bear sitting on a cloud playing a harp. It's like, oh, that's pretty good, huh? Interesting, yeah? All right. Underneath the slogan, what do you think a slogan for a taxidermy shop would be?
Stuff it.
Stuff it. Right, right. I was in the UK and this guy goes, get stuffed. I go, that would not get you any business at all. Okay, here it is. These guys came up with animal heaven. Oh, not bad, right? Not bad. Okay. Brown looks at that and goes, man, that is great. I pretty much know which direction we're going to go, but let's go ahead and compare my ideas just in case. Execs are like, sure, whatever. All right, so they walk over. He goes, would you mind? They get the envelope. They're standing there. They pull it open, and as the paper goes up, you see the blood drain from their face. Because what's on the piece of paper? A bear sitting on a cloud playing a harp. Now, underneath it, remember, their slogan was Animal Heaven. Darren Brown's, that wasn't his. His was Creature Heaven. It's pretty close, right? Now, let me ask you, when I tell you this, that Darren Brown was able to influence creatives. I think people in creative professions are creative by profession and by nature, too. Genetically, it seems like they're born that way, and for some people, more so. So how was he able to influence those people, professionals, creatives, to draw exactly what he wanted them to draw? Anybody have any guesses? Baby stuffed animal? That's really not a bad. It's not really not a bad idea, actually, because it tags in a little bit. This one guy goes, "It's fake. It's Hollywood." I said, well, maybe, but I saw them do this exact episode on the UK edition and on the US edition. And you see, I know it's not fake because I know how he did it. Okay, I'm going to tell you how he did it. Darren Brown, when he picked them up, the car sitting out front, as they walk out of the building, right there in their peripheral vision is a picture of a bear on the wall. They get in the car, and the back of the pocket of the front seat is a magazine with a bear on the front. They drive them by the London Zoo. The very first stoplight they hit, they had 10 students in blue sweatshirts with a bear sitting on a cloud playing a harp walk out in front of them across the crosswalk. The very next stoplight was a store, huge plate glass window. Right there in the middle of it, a huge harp for sale. The next coffee shop, the special was the Creature Heaven Special. And they just did this over and over and over and over all the way till they landed at the building. And even as they were walking in the revolving door, there was a guy holding a flip chart with a bear sitting on a cloud playing a harp. And then they get up there and they think it's an original thought, an original feeling to draw exactly that. Now, when I first saw that, my first thought was, oh no, how easily influenced are we? And then I started thinking about subliminal messaging. You remember subliminal messaging, right? Hidden lyrics, if you play the record backwards. That's an age-related joke. I thought more of you would get that. Okay, so, but what we've learned is there's no such thing as subliminal influence. You can't hide messages in something and influence people. But what does work are triggers. Each stop, each moment was a trigger to get them to start thinking and feeling a certain way. So that way, when they had enough triggers in a short enough period of time, it created that enough momentum for those ad execs to feel and do what he wanted them to do. Now, I don't know about you, but I like that idea. And when I started thinking about it, it was one of those lightning bolt moments when, I've been doing this for 24 years. Working with people just like you, face to face, heart to heart. And when you do that long enough, you notice patterns. You start to see patterns in the chaos. And for me, it was like, bam, I know exactly what this is. You see, there's a motivational theory called behavioral momentum. And what that theory basically says is that if you can combine the right kinds of triggers in a short enough period of time, you can get what psychologists call a disproportionate salience on people's behavior. Basically, it just means an irrationally strong effect. And that's what Darren Brown did. It took a ton of work for him to get enough triggers in that period of time to get them to do something so specific. But he was able to do that. And when you start thinking about that in that way, I had another little lightning bolt moment. Okay, I wonder what triggers I'm exposed to. I wonder what kind of trigger I am to other people. Yeah, so I want you to start thinking about this, and I'll give you just a couple quick questions to start thinking about it. All right? What's the first thing your employees think or feel when they see your face first thing in the morning? Yeah? That's a powerful trigger. As a matter of fact, I interviewed this guy. I do these top performer conferences all the time. And this organization had one of their top performers. I interviewed him. His name was Gary Brown. I said, Gary, tell me, what's your daily flow like? Now, I'm telling you right now, Gary is high analytical. I mean, he was there's no emotion on his face whatsoever. He spoke almost like a robot. All right, he was so focused, and I was just like, okay, this guy's obviously analytical, introverted, right? And so I'm thinking, how is he able to communicate? I mean, because he has tons of employees. He has grown over 35 years, an amazing business. And I said, what's your typical work day like, Gary? And this is what he said. He goes, Andy, the very first thing whenever I arrive at work is I make sure and make myself seen as much as I can. And I smile. And to everyone I can see, everyone I can come in contact with. He said, because what I've learned over 35 years is that first impression that people get from me can make or break their whole work day. I thought that was interesting. And so this was not easy for him. He goes, Andy, I'm not really a smiley guy. And he goes, I had to really work on that. But I learned that over time, that was just, successful people are a little bit more pragmatic than most. They just eventually see what works and end up doing what works. Yeah? Figuring out what works, and then they do that. Now, in this case, I'm going to give you a couple other questions. What's the first thing your members think or feel when they see your face? What's the first thing your members think or feel when they walk into your club? Magic! Yes, I like that a lot. Because you know what? It's more important than most people think. Let me give you an example. There was a research study. Now, I'm just going to tell you this right now. Through our time today, I'm a researcher by background. I'm a stress expert. I've done research on how men and women respond to stress, and the gender difference that relates to how men and women respond to stress. I've also done maximal stress testing, environmental stress testing. I've researched people like you, like I said, for 24 years about what does it really take to thrive in a high-demand life, a high-demand role. And I love research. I'm a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled kind of guy. That's funnier in a more research-oriented crowd. I love research so much, I have inappropriate thoughts about research. Oh, you think I'm weird for that? Okay. Raise your hand for me if you've ever looked at a bar chart, a pie chart, a spreadsheet, data of some form, a report, and thought, that is beautiful. That's what I thought. All right. And I'll tell you why I love research so much and why I'm going to share some very important research with you and how to use this research throughout our day-to-day is because clarity is energy in a complex world. Clarity is energy in a complex world. If you want to matter more to your employees, to your members, to your loved ones, help them find greater clarity. You will matter more. Do you think your members live in a complex world? Do you think they come to your club to reduce that complexity? You bet. And the better you are at that, the greater emotional response you can get and the greater psychological advantage you can get as well. Okay. So let me show you this. Let me talk about this one study. Since we had such amazing food out there, all right, here's the deal. They did two buffets. One group went to this, one group went to that. This buffet started with the salad and all the healthy stuff. This group started with the heavier stuff. They just measured what the people ate. The people who saw salad first ate more salad. The people who saw the heavier stuff more ate more of the heavier stuff. And that's because of the primacy effect, is that your initial gut reaction, your initial visual, your initial smell, feel that you get creates a disproportionate salience on the behavior of other people, an irrationally strong effect. Okay? So I want you to start thinking about what are the first things that people experience from you and from your club, And now I want you to also think about, from your perspective, what's the first thing you see, experience in your day? On a typical first of the week Tuesday, when your alarm goes off or your brain wakes up, what's the very first thought you think? Now, I'm asking you this for real because I want you to tell the person next to you, on a typical Tuesday, cranking it up first of the week, what's your first thought that enters your mind? Tell the person next to you right now, do it.
Pain.
Pain. That's funny. Pain. This in my pocket. Okay, people, I didn't say tell them your life story. Come on, let's do this. All right, Michael, first thought of the day. Bam.
What's the priority?
What's the priority of the day? See, like most 90+%, I would say maybe 90% of the people who I ask this question to, they come up with, it's something about go, go, go. What have I got to do? What have I got to get done? What's happening? Right? Check my phone, whatever that. And that is a very powerful trigger. Now, it's not the worst trigger, but it's not the best. Because if your first thought is go, 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 now, wondering what your priorities is, that's a little bit in the grayish area because that's focusing on what's important. But if your first thought has something to do with go, 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 what that is that's an incredibly powerful trigger inside of you to trigger the stress response. Now, here's why that's a big deal. Because every day you wake up, you have 3 hours of adrenaline in your body. It's a gift from above. Even if you live completely unhealthy or super healthy, that's all you get, 3 hours of adrenaline. And if you crank that up at 6 or 7 in the morning, you're done by 9. You ever experience a mid-morning lull? Oftentimes that's the reason. We mask that lull by caffeine often, and I'm a caffeine advocate. I'll touch on that later. But here's the thing. If you kick off your adrenaline first thing, then later when you really need it, you don't have it. Okay, so it's not a bad thing, but it's definitely a better way to think about start your day. Ryan, what's your first thought of the day?
Similar tasks.
Tasks, yeah, excellent. What about you, Luann?
What adventures will happen today?
What adventures will happen today?
Every day is a new adventure in our life. Really.
I mean, that's even too much for a motivational speaker right there. I mean, that's, woo, awesome, man. What about you, Gene?
Pain.
Pain! He feels pain! All right. Oh, physical pain. Okay, yeah, crack, pop, I get that. All right, let me ask you this. Raise your hand for me if you love your snooze button. Oh, man, you guys need me so bad. All right, this is not a judgment, it's just pure scientific fact. The snooze button is secretly plotting to destroy you. Yeah. I did research that. Hey, well, just to let you know, I'm not full of it. Let me just tell you. Well, let's just do a hypothetical. Let's say you're an action hero in an action movie, but you just got captured by the villain. And the villain, to be extra villainous, is going to give you the choice of what torture. He gives you the choice of 3. Choice number 1, bamboo shoots jammed under your fingernails. Choice number 2, high-powered electric shocks to the groin. Choice number 3, sleep deprivation. Who wants bamboo under the fingernails? Nobody? There's 1 or 2, a couple weirdos. All right. Who wants high-powered electric shock to the groin? He's back there like I do it every Saturday night. What are you talking about, man? So 99% of this group's going to go sleep deprivation. You'd all be wrong. Sleep deprivation is the fastest way to mentally and physically break someone. I mean, break them down fast. Do you know how they do sleep deprivation torture? They wait till you're just about asleep, wake you up. Just wake you up. I'll tell you whatever you want. That's what the snooze button is. It's a legitimate form of torture. Really. it creates and what's happening when you do that is it creates this biochemical storm of stress hormones and negative nasties all brewing in your system. Plus, there's no better way to start the day than a little procrastination, right? So this one lady goes, well, Andy, what's the solution? Easy. Take your alarm. If snoozing is an issue for you, put it on the other side of the room. You get up, you walk over, positive motion creates positive emotion. She goes, well, Andy, that could be good. I'll get up, I'll go hit snooze, and then I'll go back to bed. I was like, all right, well, then you need the clocky. The clocky is an alarm clock with wheels. So on your bedside table, it starts to go off. It runs off your bedside table, runs around the room. You got to catch it to turn it off. Cool. Yeah, cool. This one guy goes, that would work for me, Andy. One time. All right. So here's what I want you to start thinking about. You know, what I'm laying out for you so far today is I want you to get this idea of what happens in your day, how you structure it, how you choose to think, the experiences that you build for yourself, and the experiences that you build for your members and in your employees creates a disproportionate salience on their behavior. Now, if you let it go to chance or to the Americanized work culture, it's going to make life harder for you and everyone. But if you think about it a little better, a little more specifically, and implement these ideas that I'm going to give you, you're going to be able to create positive behavioral momentum in your day and in others' day. And if you start that right, it can last the whole day. Okay? All right, so choice number one is the waking thought is go, go, go. Triggers your stress response. Choice number two, the second most common, is snooze button, or I need caffeine. Now, like I said, I'm a caffeine advocate, and I believe that, well, did you know that caffeine is an illegal performance-enhancing drug in the Olympics? That if you did 18 to 24 ounces of drip coffee, depending on the strength, that if you did that right before an Olympic event and won a gold medal, but then got tested, you would get stripped of the medal, banned for life. Because that level of caffeine produces an increase in strength of 7% instantly. A time to fatigue or endurance increases 20% instantly. 18 to 24 ounces. That's about 300 to 400 milligrams of caffeine. Did you know that there was Tour de France cyclists who got busted carrying 2,400 milligram caffeine suppositories? How about 22 cups of coffee? Woo! Don't do that, people. That's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. But what about health? Have you ever had someone tell you that you shouldn't do caffeine through coffee or tea? It's not healthy for you? Well, if that happens again, just do what I do. Oh, really? You know what? You should probably go grab some coffee and reread the research. Do it. It's awesome. I love doing that. They'll go, what? I go, come on, pick it up. Let's go. All right, because here's the thing. There was a 20-year longitudinal study from Harvard. That means they followed people for 20 years. These are the gold standard of studies. Found that people that did that same amount of caffeine, 300 to 400 milligrams, 18 to 24 ounces of caffeine through coffee or tea, also had a reduced incidence of Alzheimer's, stroke, heart disease, and some forms of cancer. Yeah. And those guys out there did not pay me to say that. They maybe should have, but here's the deal. If you do too much caffeine is a trigger to your stress response. You don't want too much of a trigger to your stress response because then your body's going to start producing cortisol, and that makes you cranky and gain weight around your midsection, and it makes all kinds of heart disease, all that stuff. So you want to find that sweet spot for you, okay? But if you don't do caffeine and you feel great, don't do caffeine. If you do caffeine, don't feel bad about it as long as you do it in reasonable quantities. Okay? But let me bring this back to our line of thought right now, because if I need caffeine or snooze is the first thought of your day, that is a very powerful trigger of loss of personal control. You're basically saying, I don't have what's inside of me, so I need something outside of me, which is a negative trigger, a negative behavioral trigger. It's powerful, more powerful than most people think. Yeah? All right, so the top three most common first thoughts of the day are go, 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 stress response. 2, caffeine or snooze. I don't have what's inside of me. Number 3 most common response is, whew, I gotta pee.
He's popular.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can see how any one of those are going to be really motivating for the day, right? There's a better way to start the day. And I'm going to talk about these daily triggers that you can plug in that make a big difference for you. Okay? But to get there, I want us to, everybody take a huge, big, deep breath in and hold it. Now, I know that this room and myself, we don't have time to play video games very often, typically, on average. I did when I was young, but I haven't in 20 years. I think the last one I played was Asteroids. Yeah? Pac-Man. Oh, yeah, Mrs. Pac-Man, right. So here's what I'm thinking. I want you to start thinking. I'm going to bring this up because it's going to give us a context for me to hang some of these ideas on. And one of them is, I'm always fascinated by people who are addicted to video games because I'm not necessarily that way, but I want to know why they are that way. I mean, as a human behavior guy, I want to know what motivates people. So like one of my clients, a high-tech firm in Oregon, they have people who volunteer for the night shift so they can have more people online when they play video games. I mean, these are like super successful people. So it's just not kiddos. It's interesting. So I want to know. So I researched it. I interviewed people, and I found out why video games are so addictive. It's because basically you get things in those games that we don't usually get in real life. And the most popular way of saying that is they get power-ups. So like one of the most popular power-up, it's something you find or earn in the game. Okay, could be a bigger gun or whatever, but one of the most popular power-ups in this one video game is called the Talisman of Immunity. You find this talisman, you earn it, you put it on, and you're immune to anything that comes at you. Wouldn't it be great to have a talisman of immunity at work? I've got that for you. Especially what?
Especially if you work in Boca.
In Boca. I don't know why that's worse, but all right. But okay. But there's so many times that we would love to just have all this stuff coming at you from your members, your board, your employees, your loved ones, everything, right? You just like, bam. It's like you put on this Teflon suit. Wouldn't that be awesome? I have that for you. Another really popular power-up is the Wand of Influence. You find this wand, you can, bam, influence someone else to do what you want them to do. Wouldn't that be cool? And the final power-up is basically the most common. It's called energy power-ups. You just find something, and then once you find this little, maybe it's a piece of pizza or a hot dog or just a gold blinking dot, you find that, you go, bam, whoop, your energy is powered up. Wouldn't it be great to have the top 3 ways to increase your energy at work? I got those for you too. All right, so I'm going to tell you how to structure your day in a more productive way. I'm going to give you these 3 power-ups that you can plug in for yourself and use for and with others, and it's going to make a huge difference for you. But we're going to start with the Talisman of Immunity. Remember how I was speaking about how your first thought being caffeine or snooze, saying I don't have what's inside of me, being a really powerful negative trigger. And I'll tell you why that is. You see, a big part of what I do with people over the past 24 years is I'm a researcher. I'm always interviewing, looking at how people live and think, trying to find out what are the ways of living and thinking that motivate, inspire, empower, and what are the ways of living and thinking that take hardworking, responsible adults and make their motivation fluctuate, make stress higher than it should be, makes anxiety higher than it should be. I'm not talking about how you motivate the unmotivated. I'm talking about the motivated, what creates resistance for them, right? And one of the ways I do that is by interviewing psychologists. I interview psychologists of all different ilk, for people who specialize in hardworking adults like us, for children, for athletes, for people who are going through medical difficulty, all different kinds. I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite interviews. But before I got the real deal, here's the thing. If you ask a psychologist, if I say, hey, listen, I do a lot of programs for club managers. They have a very demanding job. It would be easy with so many things going on in their world to get bogged down, to get overwhelmed, to maybe lose that love and feeling. What do you think the most common thinking error for club managers is? And a psychologist is gonna go into robot mode and goes, there is no common answer, everyone is individual, right? I think they must take an oath that they can't generalize. But see, I know that that's not true. After working with people for so long, remember, you see those common themes, those common threads, you start to put those threads together. I know that you're all individual. I just know that you're not that individual. If you take a hardworking, conscientious adult and you put them into a high-demand environment, they're going to start adopting ways of thinking and living with the best of intentions that don't serve them well. I call it the more with less paradox. In your world, many times, some of the ways of thinking and working that you apply with the best of intentions hold you back. I see it all the time. All right, so I thought, I've got to get the real deal. Now, you don't know this about me yet, but my brother, Jess, owns the largest production brewery in Arkansas and Oklahoma. I'm what you call quality control. So I called up a psychologist who respected in my home area, a guy named John, and I said, hey John, listen, I want to run some ideas by you. Would you mind meeting me at my brother's brewery at one of his pubs? He goes, sure. So we meet. I pump him with 3 of my brother's finely crafted ales, and then I say, now come on, John, seriously, there's got to be a common thinking error that brings, not people with serious problems, but people that are hardworking, conscientious adults that bring them to you when they're just saying things like, I'm anxious, I'm tired, I'm not as happy as I feel like I should be given the great things in my life, and I feel like I'm more influenced by the negative things than the good things. And he goes, well, Andy, if you think about it, they all have the same problem. He goes, what brings people to me if they don't have a serious problem is they're trying to control things that they don't have control over. Now, let's pause for a second, because I don't know if you've been to a stress management program, but most of the time in a stress management program, you're going to get taught things like meditation, yoga, mindfulness, exercise, Pilates, They're going to teach you to, eat things like quinoa. I don't even know what that is. Now, I believe in all of those things except for quinoa. That stuff's disgusting. But I believe in and practice those things. I do meditate. I do yoga. I occasionally do Pilates. I'm a big believer in mindfulness. I believe in those things. But those are all managing symptoms when it comes to what's the core of stress? What creates stress in your brain and your life? What creates stress in the brains and lives of your employees and your members and your loved ones? 99% of the time, it's because they're spending their focus, their energy, your energy on something that you really don't have control over. And my buddy John, he goes, Andy, it's one of the best parts of my job, because when people have this issue, which most do, he goes, all you got to do is ask them a series of questions to get them to realize. See, what he does is he asks them a series of expertly crafted questions that by their own responses, they start to realize they're more in control of their life than they thought. That they're putting focus into things they don't have control over. And he goes, the minute he does that with them, the energy in the room changes. You see, stress, anxiety, all those things start to drop significantly. Frustration, overwhelm, and all of a sudden, proactivity starts to go up. Now, I'm telling you, proactivity is better than motivation. Because motivation is the desire to do something, the want to. Proactivity is the intention to. or the actual doing of something to improve. And the minute you start to get this more proactive feeling, emotion in your body, man, it's amazing. Now, when you go through this concept and this starts to sink in with you a little bit, it's going to be amazing for you. And I mean, there's going to be, in a room of this many people, there's a few of you who are like, man, I think about this all the time already, and I'm proud of you for that. I would have thought of it way sooner. But as you start to really internalize this idea of control, what it's going to do for you is that you're going to be able to put on this talisman of immunity whenever you refocus on what you do have control over. And other people too, when they're stressed out or freaking out or negative, or you're going to be able to go, oh, bam, by helping them, speaking with them, asking them questions in a way that gets them to focus on what they do have control over, change the energy, just like that. Now, anytime I'm sitting where you are, I'm always thinking, all right, speaker boy, how do you use this information? Is this just all hypothetical? All right, well, a couple months after I had my sit down with my buddy John, the psychologist, I haven't told you this about me yet either, but my office manager is my wife's identical twin sister.
Well, that's dangerous.
So you might think I'm crazy, but I'm crazy like a fox. Because my sister-in-law and my wife are the two closest people. Let's not do any Arkansas jokes, all right? My sister-in-law and my wife are the two closest people I've ever met. Ever. They're the closest people. And my sister-in-law would do anything for her sister, and I benefit by proxy. All right, but here's the deal. My sister-in-law, her husband, very talented football coach. At the time, he was a high school football coach, got the attention of University of Arkansas, Razorbacks, SEC, big time. Okay, he got the opportunity to coach for the Razorbacks. He had to spend a year as an intern. How much do interns make? I should ask the ex-students up front, right? Not much, if nothing. Okay, so they couldn't afford where they were living. So where did they live? With me. Okay, so here's the thing. I haven't told you this yet either, but I have two little girls, 9 and 13. My sister-in-law, their family, they have two little girls, 9 and 13. Now, they were actually born 6 weeks apart, 9 weeks apart. And that's some freaky twin stuff. Or my wife told me when to show up, and I did. Okay, all right. It was all planned out. All right. So I went from 2 in my house went from 4 to 8 in my house. Now, here's the thing. Knowing what little you know about me at this point, would you think that I think that sleep is important for kids? Yeah, take that times 10. Okay, now, my sister-in-law, she's a great mother, but they're not so big on a strict bedtime. Okay, my house, 8 o'clock, bam! All right, I walk in after they move in, very first night, everybody's excited, 8 o'clock rolls around, I walk out into the living room, it's chaos. Now, people, listen, let me tell you, I have formal authority in my house. I walk out and go, hey, 8 o'clock, let's go, bedtime. And everybody froze. Everybody looked at me, and they went back to what they were doing. Ever experienced that? It's frustrating. Now, I'm a human behavior guy. I try every trick that I can find, right, to get them to do what I want them to do. None of it is working. Now, what do you think? What do you think's happening inside of me every minute past 8 o'clock? I mean, I'm starting to vibrate, okay? Do you think my wife can see that, feel that? Do you think my sister-in-law can see and feel that? Yes, it's starting to create this tension. And tension, once it's created, will either build or dissipate. It rarely stays the same, and in this case, it starts to build, okay? And so over the next few days, it built, and it's affected me professionally and personally, and I'm like this. I've tried everything I could think of. I mean, even when you have formal authority, you know, the boss, sometimes the best approach isn't to say, do this because I'm the boss, right? So I started to think, I know what I'll do. Hey, John, my psychologist friend, meet me at my brother's brewery. I got a couple things I want to run past you. He goes, great, we meet. I pump him with 3 of my brother's finely crafted ales. I say, you know, John, I got this situation. And before I even finish describing it, he starts to laugh. I'm like, what's so funny? He goes, Andy, you know what this is? I go, no. He goes, it's control. He goes, let me ask you a question, Andy. Do you have control over your wife? No. Do you have control over your sister-in-law? No. Do you have control over your kids? No. He goes, that's right. No one has control over their kids. They have influence. And he goes, I pity the fool that thinks they control their kids. Anybody in here have teenagers? Have had teenagers? All right, now, he goes, Andy, what do you have control over? I was like, oh. How I choose to think and what I choose to do. He goes, exactly, session over. I said, that's good because I know what to do. 8 o'clock the next night rolls around. I walk into the living room, total chaos. I said, okay. I look around, I'm looking, I see her. My little, at the time, she was 9. She's 9 now, but at the time she was 6. My little 6-year-old Camille Core. 6 years old, but she's really only 1.5 years old. Anybody get that? She was a leap year baby. So I go find my little leapling, they call them leaplings, and I go up there and I pick her up and I grab her, and she's a sweetheart girl, and I walk her into her bedroom and I sit her down and I said, now don't move. And then I walk back out and I grab my little Bella cord, she's got the huge heart. I carry her in there, don't move. I leaned out the door and said, good night everybody, shut the door. I put my babies down, I walk out, and do you think I felt tension? Yes. My wife looks at me and she goes, okay. Now, here's the thing that I want you to realize, an idea from a stress expert. This works. Anytime you are about to do this kind of conversation, be the person who speaks first. And be the person, and when you speak first, quickly as possible, reach what's called conceptual agreement. What can we agree upon? Okay? So, I'm following my wife in there, and I shut the door, and she's turning around, and she's winding up. And I go, honey, listen. I mean, we have to agree, right, that our babies need their sleep. Yes, but, and you know what they're like when they don't get their sleep, right? She goes, yes. All right, now see, I've already gotten 2 yeses. Now, that's the way that conversation went, right? But it didn't finish off to her like, I love you so much, you know? She was like, don't touch me, and walks out. Now, but here's the thing. She wasn't happy, but we reached conceptual agreement, right? Okay, so the very next night, 8 o'clock happens. I mean, sometimes when you have to have difficult decisions, you don't walk away feeling all lovey-dovey, right? Professionally and personally. You got to do what's right, reach the best agreement, do the best you can, what you have control over in that conversation. And I did. Okay, 8 o'clock the next night, what do you think I did? Same thing. Grabbed my babies, put them down. Went out and said, hey, good night, everybody. Shut the door, put my babies down. When I walked out, do you think I felt tension? No, they were in bed. Now, I tried every form of trick and formal authority and everything I could think of, and all the time it wasn't working, or not as well as I thought it should, and my internal stress and anxiety was building. My influence was decreasing. Only when I thought about and did what I knew I had personal control over did things improve. The moment I understood what I had control over, my attitude started to improve. And the minute I did that in a logical and leadership fashion, it influenced others to do what they should be doing. Now, I know that's a personal example, but I can guarantee you run into this all the time at work. When you're trying to influence one of your managers, influence one of your members, influence your board, right? When they're feeling stressed or frustrated or overwhelmed, they're focused on what they don't have control over. And if you, as the leader, can get them and yourself and your team focused on what you do and making progress towards that, that's a very powerful, positive trigger. Yeah? All right, let's do another big, deep breath in. I share this with you because I believe in this. And I had a guy write on an evaluation last week. He goes, nothing new. That hurt my feelings, really. But it's not new. There's not much new under the sun, but it's what I want when I'm sitting in your seat is the expert to come and say, here's the situation. Stress, anxiety, lots of responsibility is in your wheelhouse. How can you better manage that when you're under stress? How can you better influence other people when they're feeling stressed or overwhelmed or when the season is rolling in, right? Or when organizational or just industry changes start to happen, when your population changes, how can you help your people focus better in a more productive way? This is a very simple and clear way to do that. The talisman of immunity is to focus on what you do and do not have control over, and it is more important than pilots, quinona, exercise, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, and I love all those things, but if you want what the core of it is, that's it. So, what I want to do now is a little interactive moment. I want you to talk with the people in your nearest vicinity. I want you to think about, what should we focus on first? Do you think about what your members are worried about? Or do you think about you want to focus on what your team is worried about? What's more stressful for you right now? Motivating your team or influencing your members? Team. Members. We're going to start with team. All right? What do you think stresses your team out the most? Right? Now, people around you discuss, and I'm going to come back in a minute, and we're going to discuss. Ready? 60 seconds. That's not long. Ready, get set, go. Okay, thanks for doing that, everybody. All right. I always like to start in the far back corner. All right, this table right here, what's a common thing stressing out your team? Change. Okay, what kind of change?
Staffing change, schedule change.
Okay, so she says change, staffing change, schedule change. Do you think change is an issue? If change is a potential issue with your team, raise your hand. Excellent. Okay, good. All right, that's great. What else?
We had lack of communication, not knowing what's going on in the workplace.
Lack of communication, right?
They make a decision and they don't have the information.
Yeah, so lack of communication amongst the team, right? So then it's hard to make decisions without all the information, and then, that can step on other people's toes, and absolutely, I like that a lot. What about you guys?
Members being members.
Members being members. Yeah, like oftentimes, when I ask people what's really stressing out your team, they go, people. Right, it's amazing. Yeah, right. So member behavior, what's more specific?
They're rude.
They're rude. Yeah.
They're cranky.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the members are, sometimes are a little higher up on the chronological scale, and that can make them sometimes more direct, right?
They all want to eat from 6 to 7:30.
They all want to eat the Luann platter, right? 6 to 7:30. Yeah, so okay. I think that's a common thing. Now, I know that's a common thing, is helping your staff deal with members who are not being the best versions of themselves. Yeah? How do you mentally approach that when that happens? Yeah, I got some ideas for that, but I want to any expert that stands up there really knows the best information is usually out here, right? So let's discuss. This is a great one right now. Let's do it. How do you help? Anybody have any good ideas on how to help your team deal with rude members? They're like, good luck with that, huh? Come on, seriously, raise a hand. You got any ideas on? Yes, sir.
Don't take it personally. I mean, that's the biggest message you can send to your staff.
Yeah. Don't take it personally.
Right.
Do you know?
They're mad at you. They're mad at whatever's going on around you. You just happen to be the target of that.
Right. Yeah, so he's saying don't take it personally. You need to realize that it's oftentimes not about you, it's about them, right? And what they're fearful of or irritated by. And usually, to tie us back to my first key point, it's something that they don't have control over, right? And so that's one of my ideas for you, is to teach your staff this idea. Because if someone comes up and says, what's a common complaint? Food's cold. And okay, so in that situation, I would suggest that you teach your staff, the first thing is reach conceptual agreement, right? Oh, your food is cold. I can see that. We can agree. I understand that, all right? Now, that connects, and then you go into, you know what I have control of, what I can do to help? What I can do is this. Huh?
I can heat it up. I can make it hot.
I could go heat it up for you, right? Now, this sounds common sense, but it's not commonly practiced. It's not the common reaction when you're under stress. If someone is rude to you, if someone pushes against you, what's your reaction typically? That's right, push back, okay? I'll give you an example. I was at this digital marketing conference. One of the speakers he pulled me aside and he was like, Andy, listen, I'm having a stressful situation right now. My business, I've had to move it to Toronto from Portland, and I'm engaged, so I had to bring my significant other. And I was like, yeah. He goes, she hates Canada. It's cold, it's dark, and I'm like, I go, oh, yeah. So he says she's always complaining about it. I say, what do you do? He goes, well, I get mad because I love Canada. I love this place. And I say, okay, that's the wrong move. The right move is to reach conceptual agreement and say, you know what? It is dark. It is cold. Just call it like it is. I understand that. But you know what? We had to do this, and I feel like if we focused on things like this is a really cool culture here, or this, right? And you're still not going to go, I love you so much after that conversation, but it's going to lead it in a more productive path, because if you can get her focused on what she has control over in that situation, we don't have control of the fact that it's cold or it's dark at certain times of year, but what we do have control over is how we engage at this point. Now, I don't know what you're thinking about this idea, but the reason why I'm spending time on it is because it ties to a very specific psychological principle that I believe is the core of stress. It's the culprit and the cure. Because if you can get your members to focus on, oh, their experience is going to be ruined because their dinner is cold, to you know what we have control over here, we can fix this, and you get them focused in that direction, it will make a big difference in their attitude. Versus you go, oh, that's cold? Doesn't look cold to me, right? All right, well, that was the last special, and it's gone, sorry. Okay, but so you see my point. All right, I want another idea that you've used to help your staff members deal with rude people. Seriously, come on, let's do this. Yes, sir. Yeah, to hit it off at the pass, right? Yeah, because any staff member that's been there for like any length of period of time is going to know what the common rub points are, right? And as the leader, you're going to know what those are too, because you felt the negative brunt of the comment cards or whatever it may be, right? So I want to offer a suggestion, is that with salespeople, it's criminal if they haven't written out what the common objections are and have a script on how to deal with those common objections. It's dumb, right? It's not as obvious for what you're doing, but if I were you, I would work out those common rubs that your members, that you know what the common things are, and work through a script with your team on how to deal with it. And if you make that script help them refocus on this idea of control, it will make it very productive, right? Great role play opportunities for your staff and yourself. And if you write those things down, you can create this piece. And I'm sure many of you have done this. But if you haven't, it's very helpful. Yeah, very helpful. Yes, sir.
Most of my clients with your clubs have high expectations for member behavior. And if the rudeness reaches a certain level and the dining room manager can't successfully intervene, grieving the member is not uncommon.
So I'm from Arkansas. Help me figure out what grieving the member means.
Grieving means that you could have a hearing and be suspended from use of the club because of your bad behavior.
Right. See, I love that idea.
Accommodate the poor and rude member. We try to educate them to behave better, set a higher level of expectations of behavior across the board.
That's great. Do you guys hear that? That's a great one. I mean, it could be phrased a couple different ways, right? It could be phrased as, you're going to the principal's office, right? Sleep deprivation. That's right. You're in the inner circle. You're about to be out of the inner circle. Right? Okay, now that's one way to view it. In some situations, that is the best way to communicate it. But I like the way you're phrasing it. Right? We have certain expectations of our members. You know, it's like it's also saying, you know, we need to agree upon this. We need to agree upon what is common courtesy in this situation, and this is what we agree upon in this organization. And I think what you're doing, if you do it that way, you're leading with, it's going to connect with one of our key points later, is that if you lead with a meaning-based context, you can make those difficult conversations go a lot smoother and be a lot more impactful. Yeah, very good. That's great. Yes, ma'am.
It's important to make your employees feel safe in those circumstances, because when a member is rude or upset with them, one of the things that goes to a brain is, I might lose my job. That's where some fear comes in. And important to let them know that here's how to handle that, and we have your back. That
Yeah.
the manager is behind you. You know, if you handle this properly, your job is secure. This is just something to get through.
I love that. So she's saying that, you know, obviously the employee, their main fear, the threat in this situation is losing their job or getting reprimanded or, right, something like that. So, but if you say, if you execute in this way, we've got your back, right, to give them a way to focus on that. I know that you all do that, but to me, people that are more successful under stress, they're typically not smarter, they just have better patterns. Patterns of thinking, patterns of living. So if you can help your team have better patterns of thinking and acting, that's really, to me, what it's all about. Giving them those steps that they can take. Now, I'm going to give you another little tag on with this. I'm going to ask you this question right now. What do you think? I'm going to give you 4 choices. What do you think? Employee engagement is huge in the corporate world right now, and I'm sure it's huge in your world as well. How do you get your team to not only just be willing to work hard, but want to work hard? Fully engaged, okay? So Towers Watson did a global workforce survey, 6 countries, 90,000 people. If you want to know something, get it straight out of the horse's mouth. So they asked these 90,000 people, what would make you be engaged in the workplace? All right, they gave them 4 choices. Number 1 was money. Who thinks pay is the number 1 way to motivate people? You know what? In some populations, it was number 1, but overall, it was not. Number 2 is direct manager relationship, or B, direct manager relationship. Now, a good relationship with a manager can make a terrible job good, and a bad relationship can make a great job terrible. Okay? And in some certain population segments, that was number 1, but overall, it wasn't the number 1 engager. Number 3, career advancement opportunity. In some situations, definitely career advancement was the number 1 motivator. Typically younger populations, like when I was speaking at the Worlds, these 2 students, I mean, they're thinking career advancement. They need to grow. It can be very motivating, okay? But it wasn't the number 1. D, feeling the supervisor has a sincere interest in my well-being. Does that sound like rainbows and unicorns to you? Uh-huh. Oh, no? Okay, good, good. Because it did to me before I looked at it and before I thought about it. You know, once you really think about it, it does make sense. That if your people don't feel like you got their back, that you have a sincere interest in their well-being, then they're not going to be fully engaged. And do you know what's worse than, or what do you think is the most important word in that sentence of feeling the supervisor has a sincere interest in my well-being? Sincere, right? The only thing worse than someone goes, I don't care about you. I'm going to grind you down and hire someone else. I would like that person better than them saying, you know what, we so care about you while we grind you down and get somebody else. Right? That's dumb. It's dumb, okay? So I really like where you're going with that. If you want to make sure that you want people to feel what they, basically what I would say in your situation is they're going to be fearful of what they don't have control over. Say, you know what, you do have control over how you react. And if you react in these guidelines, we've got your back. That's very motivating. Very motivating. Yeah. Okay, good. Do you want to jump to the next? What do you think your members are gives them the anxiety, what they're worried about? Thanks for the overwhelming response. All right, so let's do it. You got 1 minute. What are your members really worried about? Ready, get set, go. Yes, sir.
When you said those 4 items, I think that you have to have a combination of them all.
See, that's smart.
Combination of them all. I
Yeah,
think
that's great.
you should visit my club and you'll see it works.
I believe that, and I would love to. I think really, if you really think about it, a sincere interest in their well-being includes pay and manager and
Different percentages, but
yeah.
when you put all of those together, you got a hell of a thing.
I agree. That's great. What's your name?
My name is Jay.
Jay. Nice to meet you, Jay.
I like
Yeah.
what you do.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, great job. Appreciate you doing that. As you can tell, I don't give you tons of time to chitty chat. Let's get it done. I only have 3 hours with you, so let's do this. All right. What's a common thing that's on your members' minds?
Continuous advancement of the program, amenities, building amenities.
Building amenities. Is building amenities on your members' minds? Okay, good. What else? All right, what about you, Trey?
Social perception,
Social perception. Help me. Unpack that for me.
Basically, how they are viewed by other members, how other members view them, or if they've been guests, and how their guests are entertained.
Okay, yeah, so how they're viewed socially. Yeah. You know, that's a big deal. What do you think? You think that's a big deal? I forget the guy's name. His first name is Greg. He does a lot of trainings for CMAA. He had a club in California. Patterson, guy was hysterical. I love that guy. He was telling, when I do the BMIs for CMAA, and he does too. And so I was sitting on his presentation, and he goes, I've got this beautiful beach club. And he goes, all the sofas are turned facing each other. They're not facing the ocean. Right? It's about social perception. Now, I want to break this one out for you because it's one of my planned modules for you. I want to break this out because this is a big one for you guys, and I feel like I've got something I can help with. I'm going to give you something else. Hold on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to describe a graph. Settle down. All right. Here's the graph. And on the far end of this graph, at the very bottom, there's 2 dots, a red dot and a blue dot. And this red dot and blue dot are just a little bit up from the baseline, and they are the same level. The red dot represents the amount of time you feel stress and worry in your day. The blue dot is the amount of time each day you feel happiness and enjoyment with life. Right? So stress and worry, happiness and enjoyment. And this graph is way over at the left and towards the bottom. That means your quality of life stinks. That means you're feeling the same amount of stress and worry as you are happiness and enjoyment with life. And right underneath that is a 1. that represents the amount of time you have quality social interaction with other human beings. So you're at 1 hour a day or less. Now, I want you to think, before I get into this graph too far, think about this. What if I followed you around for a week with my little notepad, and I noted anytime I felt like you were getting quality social connection with other human beings? And I did that for a week, and then I averaged it all up into how much time per day. On a scale of 1 to 7 hours per day, where would you be? Quality social connection. Yeah? I think some of you in here are going to be over here, but here's what happens. Like, let's just say in the month before and the month of your busy season, it could be really easy for your social connection time to go this way. You see, I do this a lot. I do this module with certain populations, and I did it with one of a population I think many of you have members. It was physicians, and it was about the same number of people. And as you've noticed, sometimes I just walk up and get input for someone even if they didn't raise their hand. And so there was a doc there, and I'm talking about how much time do you recharge? What do you do to recharge yourself? The way I asked it was like this. I'll do it for you too. I'm going to ask you a question. You have 3 seconds to answer it, okay? I want you to answer it to yourself. What do you do for fun? Who had it? You know what? That's like a third of the room. For the other 2/3 that are going, what do I do for fun? You can see the problem, right? And so I was walking by and this doc, I said, what do you do for fun? He goes, oh, I play golf. I was like, that's awesome. I said, I'm a big fan of golf. I said, did you know that when sun hits your eyes, it creates the release of adrenaline in your brain and makes you immediately feel better? I said, do you know being outside makes such an amazing difference in your quality of life? He goes, what's the evidence for that? I said, all right, let's do this. Yeah, come on. Let's do this, Bubba. All right, nonprofits, they do a lot of research. What do you think nonprofit organizations are researching in general? That's right, how to raise more money. And they did two, you can use this idea because what they did is they did 2 identical events, one indoors and one outdoors. And they measured the amount of giving per person. The outdoor event had significantly more giving per person. And if you look deeper into the research, when people are outdoors, it connects them with something bigger. They immediately score higher on compassion. So if you want to make people feel more compassionate, get them outside, okay? And I said, that's cool. That's golf, outside. I said, okay, and I'm a big fan of golf too because of social connection typically, physical activity, lots of great stuff. And he goes, yeah, it's awesome. I said, so when do you play golf? And he does this. And then he goes, I used to play golf. Right? Let me ask you, for your industry, let me ask you this first. Do you think it's going to get more or less busy for people in the next 5 years? I think more. Do you think life is going to become more or less complex in the next 5 years? It's going to become more. Who can help them with that? You can, because of a couple different things, right? A couple different ways. But I want you to start thinking that direction, okay? Because we're going to land that. Okay. So my point is that what do you think when people feel overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, they need you really bad? Yeah? They need you really bad, and you can help them a great deal. Okay, let's do a big deep breath in and hold it. Quality social connection. We've got the amount of time you feel stress and worry, the amount of time you feel happiness and enjoyment, and you're at a 1-to-1 ratio when you're at 1 hour or less per day. Now, whenever they go 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, the graph does this. Now listen, whenever a graph does this, in this kind of arc like that, the researchers are going, oh, that's awesome. because that shows statistical significance. That means we're reasonably assured that this works. This is the real deal. We can support this idea. We can prove it. Right? So now on this graph, it does this. Stress and anxiety per day, stress and worry goes like this. Happiness and enjoyment does this in the same life, the same person. All the way until they get 7 hours a day. And then once you hit 7 hours a day, average social connection, no difference after that. Now you could be thinking, I'm not retired. There's no way I can do 7 hours a day of quality social connection. And that's most likely true, maybe true. But there's nobody in here that can't get 3 to 4 hours of quality social connection. Let me ask, do you think you can get quality social connection at work? You bet. You should. And many of you do. Okay? Yes? Oh, got questions? All right. I like that. Come on, let's do it. Were there questions? No, you were just saying you get quality social connection. I thought somebody was going to refute me. I was like, let's do this. Oh, all right, let's do. Okay, no.
How do you get more?
How do you get more social connection? We're going to get there. We're going to get there, all right? Let me dig you a little. Yeah, that's my book, right? You know. No, I'm going to dig a little deeper hole first, and then I'm going to help you out, okay? All right, because here's the thing, is most people, when their lives are pretty good, they find themselves right in here, in that 3 to 4 hour range. Then you get a 6-to-1 ratio of happiness and enjoyment to stress and worry, okay, versus a 1-to-1. And it happens all the time to almost everyone, is that when life gets busy, you do this. And see, then the problem arises, because you don't feel the effects right away. Yeah? You feel the effects 6 weeks, 6 months later. You start wondering, man, what's wrong with me? Why am I so cranky? Why am I not as appreciative, grateful for the great things that I have? You know, and many times it's because your quality social connection has spent too much time over here. Okay, now I want you to think about this a couple different ways. 3 ways, actually. You, your staff, your members. For yourself, you have a very demanding job where you have to put on your face much of the day, right? And for some people, I think was it Greg? That dude is the biggest introvert I've ever seen. Right? I'm on the other end of the scale. I'm almost as introverted as they come. Now that may surprise you, but most speakers are introverted. This is a different form of communication. Before we get to how do you get it, first you need to define what does it for you. Okay, because the same is not for everyone. I used to coach J.B. Hunt of J.B. Hunt Trucking. The guy had a 7th grade education, built a bazillion-dollar company. Anytime a guy at that education level builds that level of success, I want to know what they know. But I was coaching him. And here's the thing. After JB retired, he bought an interest in a water company in Arkansas. Arkansas's got great water, especially for making stout beer. You know what he would do? He's worth $1 bazillion, right? And so what he would do is he bought an interest in this company. He would drive out to one of the warehouses and fill the back of his truck with cases of bottled water. And then he would drive out to all those rural quick marts and try to sell them water. Why would he do that? You see, people that are really successful typically do more of what works. They have better patterns. And for JB, he was a natural extrovert. He just loved to talk to people and sell stuff. And right, I would rather be dragged behind a stagecoach than do that. That's just not my thing, right? And we have to define what is our thing. Now, my example is really simple because I'm doing these kind of things all the time, right? And usually there's a party the night before, and they want me to come to the party or the award reception or whatever it is, right? Before my speech. I try to avoid that at all costs. I'd rather be in my room reading a bad book I've already read. Because I don't know those people. We don't have any context for each other. And they look at, and it's a little weird because I come up and they say, hey, what area are you from? And I said, oh, I'm your keynote speaker tomorrow. They go, I'm going to get a drink. They're thinking I'm going to put them in my speech or it's just weird or awkward. And I'm just not a natural, that's not my thing. But after the event, you can't keep me away because now we have something real to talk about, right? That's social reconnection for me. That's social connection that really fuels me. Before, not really. It takes a lot of work to get to something real. Do you see what I'm saying? You have to define for you what is true social connection. What is that? You got 30 seconds. I want you to discuss it with the people in your area. How do you really socially recharge? Ready, get set, go. What could be? Okay, thanks for doing that. All right, what's your name, sir? Nathan? Nick. All right, Nick, what do you do to socially recharge? Just by yourself?
With my family.
Or with your family? Yeah, see, like, here's the thing. I have kids, and, I never felt like my feet were firmly planted on the ground until I had kids. It made me realize what's important. I live in Arkansas is the natural state. I've never been much for camping. I love hiking and trails. I'm a big trail guy, but I never liked camping. I never wanted to go camping until I had kids. Then I had this amazing urge to go camping by myself. I'm teasing. I take my kiddos out into nature all the time, right? All the time. But we need to figure out what works for us, okay? Sometimes we need solitude. Yeah, I'm not saying you need more social connection at the expense of solitude. We need solitude. We need reflective time. J.B. Hunt, that guy, super successful. I said, JB, I need to reschedule you next week. Can you do 2 o'clock? He goes, can't do it. I said, what about Wednesday, 2 o'clock? Can't do it. Andy got a 2 o'clock standing. I can't do it. And I thought, oh, he's a super successful guy. He probably's got all this going on. And come to find out a couple weeks later, 2 o'clock every day, you know what he does? That's right, he takes a nap. He gets out, basically what he does, he gets out and he goes in his truck and he drives off and he sits under a tree and he either just sits there and thinks or he takes a nap. Successful people figure out what works and they do that, okay? To me that's interesting because so many people I know in the desire to grow themselves, meet their responsibilities, sacrifice social connection or solitude, and they end up going, what's wrong with me? Okay? So, Warren Buffett, I watched recently a documentary on him. He has 2 hours a day of what he calls window time. Nobody can get an appointment. He just sits there and looks out the window. Or reads, right? And that's because he understands the value of solitude and contemplation. Do you think technology has helped or hurt your ability to sit and contemplate? It's killing it! Do you think that's going to grow or decrease? No, it's going to grow for other people, not for you. You're going to get a better handle on that. Okay? Very good. All right, sir, what do you do? Social connection.
That's my wife's department.
He just does what his wife says. All right, that's cool. That's good, man. He knows what works. All right, what about you?
I go to the gym for an hour in the middle of my day and just ride the bike and
It's good. Yeah. So he goes to the gym, rides his bike. That could either be social or solitude. I think that's great. I'm not going to spend time talking about exercise today. Everybody in here knows that it's probably 1/10 of why you should exercise, but that's enough for everybody, right? Because you don't even know the other 9/10. But what do you think? What do you think motivates people to exercise more than anything else? Health. Man, here's what it is. When people are exercising, the research shows that what motivates people to exercise is when they have this thought, man, I really need to reduce my risk of coronary artery disease. I wish that was true. Do you know there was a study? Do you know there was a study where they took people who've had a heart attack? And the reason why they had a heart attack is because they were living unhealthy, right? Plaque accumulation, arterial sclerosis, coronary artery disease, right? And this population who's had a heart attack, they identified them. If they started living healthier, they had a very good chance of never having another heart attack. So they put them in a study. And the doc said to them, listen, if you just eat a little healthier and exercise a little more, you're not going to have another heart attack. But if you don't, you'll be in here within 8 years for your second heart attack. And they measured how many people changed their health. Do you know how many? Out of 7, what do you think? 1. 1 in 7 changed. Now, you could think of that as depressing. If these people won't change when their life is on the line, no, that's the struggler way to look at it. The thriver way to look at it is there's one person who figured out how to do it. How to do it, right? Okay, so the fear of death is not the number one motivator. What is? Socialization. Exercising with other people is the number one way to motivate sustained exercise adherence. Now, there's some people who exercise by themselves and have done it for forever, and that's awesome. Everybody's not the same. But if you do this with your exercise motivation, socialization, and obviously I'm sure many of you are doing this already, developing social classes and so forth around exercise is a way to get people to be more engaged in that amenity. Yeah, it really is. And that increases success, and success breeds success, and so forth. Okay? Social connection. All right, what else? What do you do for social... Keith, what do you do for social connection?
Can we agree there's more than one way?
Yes, we can agree there's more than one way. Absolutely.
So one way is, comes to these folks right here. Every Thursday night, we get together, we call it our shit group.
They get together and call it their shit group. Okay, good.
So happy it's Thursday.
What is it?
So happy it's Thursday.
So happy it's Thursday. That's funny. All right, good. And what do you do? Just like get around and have a cocktail and talk, or?
We usually pick a restaurant somewhere in Naples, and we go to different restaurants and talk personal things, work things, all the above.
Man, every Thursday they meet at a restaurant and just talk about work and life, and that is fantastic. That is a thriver behavior, right? And see, what happens though is like you get those great ideas, life gets busy, you skip it for 1, 2, 3, and looks up and it's been 6 months since you've done it, right? That's the struggler behavior, right? So I'm a huge, Keith, that is fantastic. I couldn't encourage that behavior more. It's great.
Started it, so
Good job, man, good job. All right, that's really good. What else? Sir, what do you do for social connection?
Time with family.
Time with family, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, what would be good ideas for club managers? What would be a good idea to get you to move down the graph this way to lower stress and increase happiness? What would be a good way to increase your social connection? What was it? Career change. That's funny. All right, that's one avenue. It's one way to live your life. But another one, let's go with this. What about increasing social connection with your team? Huh? All right, there's huge evidence and inertia building in the working world about social connection at work and the importance of it. We're getting a greater understanding of it. One of my biggest clients, over the past 3 years, I've done 17 programs for them, all throughout their U.S. locations, Asia locations, and Europe locations. They sent me 18 hours over to Lisbon, Portugal to do a 1-hour work-life balance speech. Why would they do that? Out of the goodness of their heart? No, not out of the goodness of their heart. because they know it works. And it's not me in this particular, they send other people over there too, right? But it's about increasing this idea around this particular social connection idea at work. They've dumped tons of money into their organization, into their Great Place to Work program. I'm a huge advocate of naming programs in your culture, in your organization, Great Place to Work. Right? If you have wellness options, don't call them wellness options. It's a terrible idea. Call it a Great Place to Work program. Right? Whatever you can lump into this Great Place to Work idea, it's awesome. Okay? So this company wanted to get on the best places to work because they were losing their key talent to other high-tech companies. Okay? So they're trying to figure out how can we get our talent to stay. And so what they did is 3 things. Number 1 is they increased social connection with their teams. Basically, that was the thing that they focused on. And the way they did it was 3 ways. One is in the workplace, they always, anytime you could go down to the cafeteria or the break rooms or whatever and get free fruit. Free fruit. That was huge for them. Number 2 is they started doing social events at and outside of work to get their people to connect. Okay? For instance, they would rent out a movie theater and say, on this night, everybody in our organization can bring your family to the movie theater for free. Now, I thought that was a really brilliant way because that's something most families like to do, go to the movies. And work is typically pulling mom or dad away from family. Now work is providing something for them for free as part of their organization. And then they get to see their coworkers and their coworkers' families. And then you go 1 + 1 + 1 = 10 in that environment. So, number 1, can you provide free fruit? I would highly encourage it. Number 2, I would also say, what social events, what could you do to get your team together at and away from work to increase social connection? It will benefit you. There's tons of evidence increasing engagement and longevity and loyalty and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and the third thing they did was do what they called Beyond the Cube programs, kind of like a lunch and learn type thing, but they would bring in experts to come in and talk about things that were beyond the cubicle, outside of work. How can you be better as a person? That's where I fit in, right? But man, let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest stress for your employees in their lives? Bills, I would bet, right? It depends, right? It depends, but most of them are going to be, most people in today's world are focused on making enough money or making their money work, getting the things they want, having security, not worried about their, right? So what if you brought in a finance expert to talk to them about how they could manage their money better, or in particular, let's say, for your seasonal employees, how to manage your finances as a seasonal employee. That'd be pretty cool. I don't know about you, but it may or may not be the case, but in most workplaces, work-life balance is a big issue. So what if you brought in, I'm not talking about myself, but what if you brought in someone who talked about managing relationships during peak busy times? You know, those are cool ways to think about what are the real hot spots for your people, right? I mean, you could always do things like how to have a difficult conversation, that kind of thing. But, you know, how do you help them with their life as a whole? That produces big dividends. This company this is the real deal. They went from not on the top 100 best places to work to 77 to 44 to 30-something. And, I mean, it's crazy how effective they were. And how you get on that list is by your employees and their evaluations of how good is this place to work. They have started defunding their Great Place to Work program because it's worked too well. Seriously, they want more fresh blood now. I mean, I think, too many people staying, right? And now that the thing in the high-tech world is fresh, right? I think it's a mistake because you want to build those people. You want to, you always want to incorporate fresh blood. But I think loyalty, longevity, experience is key. Okay, and I mean, it's different industries, but that's the truth, though. I think in a couple years, they're going to refund it back to that same level or more because they're going to run into the same issue. Okay, so I highly encourage you to do 4 things. Build a great place to work program. Incorporate what you're doing now under that umbrella. Number 2, I want you to think about free fruit. Number 3, I want you to think about how can you do social connection at work and outside of work for your people to get them to feel more like a team and know each other better. And number 4 is think about education that's helping them, that's not just about work. That will help you and them do this. And that's awesome. We're doing good. All right. Take a big, deep breath in. What came to your mind with those suggestions? Is anyone doing something like that already that's... Yes, sir.
We do four employee events a year. One's team building with a bowling championship.
That's great.
Names down, everybody's intermixing with departments. So we realize who are the good bowlers and the lousy ones, and we put them together. We get squashers with managers. It's pretty good.
Yeah, so they do 4 team building or employee events a year, and one of them is a bowling thing where they can get together, and they were able to not by job role, but by skill, group people up, and that really intermixes. That's a great idea. That's super good. Yeah, excellent. What else? What else are you doing that's helpful in that regard? Does anybody provide free fruit?
We got free food.
Free food, yeah, free ice cream. Microsoft wasn't my client. Microsoft has a rule. They don't want their employees ever more than 100 feet away from food. Yeah, in their context, it's because so many times they're trying to work on a new initiative, new growth, and a guy sitting here sits 1 cubicle over, had done that same project 3 years ago. And this guy spends 6 months working on a project that has already been tried, right? They need to connect, and the only way they found to really be able to do that effectively is create social connection over food. Yeah, so that's that's a suggestion, an easy one, an obvious one, is I want you to start having non-working lunches with your team. Where you have lunch together and it's not about work. The only rule is let's not talk about work. What's up in your life? Right? And that is a cool way to do that. Like when I went to Asia, different cultures have different ways of working and living. And when I went to Asia, and I was in Malaysia, there was 400 people, and I said, how many of you work through lunch? Let me do this. I want you to raise your hand for me if you work through lunch, or skip lunch, or eat lunch on the run twice a week or more. Oh my God. So that's on my top 8 most demotivating things you can do at work. Yeah, because that's minimizing your social connection. That's not giving you a recharge time. People that work through lunch crash at 3 p.m. and are typically up to 47% less productive from 3 to 5 than the people who eat lunch. And take that break. Get that reflective time or social time or solitude time. Sometimes you got to do it. That's just the nature of the beast. I get that. But I don't want that to be your pattern or your practice. Okay? All right. Let's do another big deep breath. We still have 5 minutes left before we do our break, our 15-minute break. So I always like to pause right before break and see if there's anything that we haven't, any questions or lingering comments, or if you want to refute something, or if there's anything in your brain that you want to get out before we go to break, and we're going to move on to other topics. No? Yes, sir. That's a great question. So he's saying, does exercise in the morning deplete your adrenaline levels and sabotage you because of that? The answer is no. What exercise does is it's the number, all right, what do you think is the number one way to clear cortisol out of your body? Cortisol is the negative byproduct of too much stress and not enough clearing of stress. And that's what creates increased risk of heart disease, fat around your midsection, makes you cranky and unhappy when you could be happy. It's like it's a metabolic hijack of your happiness, okay? It allows you to push past your red zone, but there's a consequence, those side effects, okay? What do you think is the number one way to get cortisol out of your body? Let's do it. Everybody put your hands like this. And go, no, that's not it. It's exercise. Exercise is the number one way to clear cortisol out of your body by far. Whenever you exercise, it metabolizes cortisol, turns it into CO2, when you breathe it out. So exercise is an energizer. It's not going to deplete your adrenaline levels. It's going to reduce your cortisol levels, which increases your overall energy and attitude levels. So yeah. I tried that with my wife. She's like, whatever. I know it's exercise. All right. Another question? Okay, let me sum up what we've got so far today and where we're going to go for the next part of the program. Okay, so what we're talking about right now is what are the ways that you could change your day and your members' way and your employees' way. I believe in the talisman of immunity is the number one issue that I want you to leave with this program with, and that's to understand what you do and don't have control over, right? If you use that in your employee education, training, and crisis management, if you use that with your members, if you use that with your board, if you use that with your significant others, and then if you use it within yourself, it will make a gigantic difference for you. It really will. Yeah? And then we also talked about social connection, how important that is to someone's overall happiness, quality of life, their ability to be productive, their ability to feel calm under stress and connected when times are tough. So I want you to think about it a couple different ways. Number one, I want you to think about where are you on this graph? What do you do for social connection? Social connection is one of the most effective ways to increase employee engagement, productivity. What are you doing to increase social connection with your people, your team, right? Socialization is one of the most effective ways to reduce stress in your members. And I want you to think, number two ways about that. One is I want you to give yourself credit because what you do makes a real difference in people's lives. From a stress expert, I know that's true. And number two is how can you continue to increase that ability, that connection with your people? I think that's an amenity that will never go out of style. Okay? All right. So in the next part of the program, we're going to talk about the wand of influence, how you can, bam, influence people's thinking. And then we're going to talk about the 3 most evidence-based ways to increase energy at work. And I'll be around at break to answer any questions. Thank you so much.